Hi, everyone. My name is Katka Reszke, and I'm the director of the ReelAbilities Film Festival, which is presented by Boston Jewish Film. At this time of especially heightened vulnerability, physical as well as emotional, we're so glad that we can still come together, even if it is with a screen between us. But it is via the screen that, usually the silver screen, that we bring you some of the most underrepresented stories from the disabilities community, by far the largest minority group in the world. We decided to hold this festival online this year for obvious reasons. But what kept us motivated and working day and night, especially these past couple of weeks, was the idea that by presenting these narratives at this uneasy time, we could mitigate some of this feeling of isolation that many of us are experiencing right now, at least to some degree. And we could somewhat ironically, perhaps, expand our network and welcome new viewers. And so wherever it is you're tuning in from tonight, welcome. And I really hope that you are where you want to be tonight and that you are staying safe and healthy. And thank you for being here. ReelAbilities would not be possible without the continued support of our generous sponsors. And here I want to thank the Ruderman Family Foundation. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to the incredible team at Boston Jewish Film for making all of this possible. We could have canceled, we could have postponed, and we could all be watching Netflix right now. But what we're doing is so much more important. And I can't thank you enough for that. And it also applies to you, our viewers. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with us tonight. And I also want to give a shout out to our community partner for tonight's screening, and that's Wicked Queer, the Boston LGBTQ Film Festival. And now, without further ado, I want to thank Prince Amponsah, our guest tonight, for being with us. Prince is the star of The Things You Think I'm Thinking, the film that hopefully you all just saw in our showcase. And he's also the subject of Prince's Tale. Welcome, Prince.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a true pleasure to be here.
All right. And you're coming in from Toronto tonight, right?
That's right. All the way from Toronto. Well, not that far, actually. But again, just to reiterate what you say, thank you to the festival and to the fans that are tuning in to be a part of this and to come together as a community in this new form that we're doing, this video calling and video chatting that we're doing because of the situation that we're going through. So thank you.
Yeah, this is incredible. So I don't know how about you, but we are pretty much snowed in here in Massachusetts, which is late March, but we are. And I think Toronto has better weather tonight, right?
Slightly better. I mean, it's still cold, but we had a little snow that just melted away overnight, so we haven't been that bad. But I mean, it's not spring here yet either. Even if it is, we're still self-isolating, so we don't really get to enjoy it as much as we'd like, right?
All right.
Yeah.
The way I want to do this, Prince, is I want to jump in and talk a little bit about the two films and how they came about, and then we're going to take some questions from our viewers on YouTube. So I know that Jesse, who is the second star in the film, The Things You Think I'm Thinking, right, wrote the script with you in mind. Right. Can you talk a little bit about how that happened and how you were approached? I don't know if you were approached by him or if you were approached by Sharon Lee, the director of the film. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I was actually approached by Jesse LeBurkham, and he just wanted us to be able to do some sort of project together. I had seen him in a play previous to that, in a play called Sheets, which is also about intimacy and different types of relationships. And we got to know each other, and I introduced myself to him, and he approached me later on down the line to do some type of project. We didn't know what exactly we wanted to do, but we know we wanted to work together on something. So we met for coffee, had some chats, and he asked me questions about my personal life and, what it's like to experience life as a disabled person. and issues that were going on, at that time or anything like that, or what I like, types of food, all types of questions just to really get to know me. And then based on that, he sort of went back to the drawing board and made up these characters that came into fruition through this play, this film. And that's how it came about. So he did some research. We got to do a lot of one-on-ones, and we went and hung out at certain places and went to parties and went for coffee a couple of times, just so he can really get to know me and really insert my personality into the character to bring some form of authenticity to him. So that's how that came about.
And how many years post-fire did this happen?
So the fire happened 2012.
Yeah.
And then we shot the film, if I'm remembering correctly, in a couple of days in 2016. So yeah, that's how much time passed between that. It's I mean, some people might say it's not that much, but I mean, when you have sort of creative juices flowing in you and are eager to get back into the game, it does feel like quite a while. So I was pretty happy to be able to start doing that. And that was my my first on-screen type experience too. So that was great.
Right.
They made it easy. Yeah.
And was this your first attempt at acting again, or is this your first on film?
On film, first
On
on
film.
film attempt.
Okay.
That's right. But I had done a few plays before that. In 2014, I started doing a couple of plays. That was my first play. It was Lot and His God, and that was a sort of philosophical type piece by a writer named Howard Barker. And I was approached by a friend of mine that I had known for a couple of years but hadn't seen for a long while, and I happened to run into him at a gathering, and he asked me if I would be interested at all in being in a play again. And that hadn't really crossed my mind until he brought it up with me. But I'd gone through enough rehab and enough healing, so to speak, to be able to be in a place where I would at least consider it. So I said, let me get back to you. His name is Harry. So I said, let me get back to you, Harry. So I thought about it for a couple of days, read the play, and I was like, yeah, I got to do this. It was a really intense play, and I was like, yeah, okay, this is fun. Let me give it a go. Of course, I was extremely nervous and fearful of how I would be viewed or judged, and just how good I would be at it. I mean, I hadn't done it for so long, so I felt pretty rusty. But I was with a really good group of people that made it really easy for me to get back into it, and it was a blast. It was a really wonderful experience.
So before I ask you how the film came about with Jamie, the documentary about you, I want to ask you about something that you say in the film, actually, that really struck me. You mentioned how you still sometimes struggle with the self-definition when with disability. The word disability is still a word that you struggle with, and I find that really interesting. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I guess my issue with the word is to use disabled sounds like a negative. It sounds like a weakness in some way, or at least the way it's used in a lot of times. So I have struggled with that term and gone, between that and differently abled. And it's, or handicap. I mean, I know that's not a term that's used much these days. But I realize that it's just about sort of empowering yourself and taking ownership of the words. The name, the tag doesn't really matter that much as long as you embrace it with your strength. But I mean, it is still something that I'm still coming to terms with, even now after all these years, especially moments where I may reflect on, my life pre-accident and, what I was capable of doing and what I'm not capable of doing now, and how I'm viewed by society. But I do take more ownership day by day as I grow more in this body, and I find more confidence in that, to the point where the names don't really hinder me at all. So
right. I mean, this is a completely, it's one thing to have something like this happen to you, but then you were suddenly thrown into, I imagine, a whole new community of people, right? How did the community around you change? I mean, Toronto is it's an extremely open society, and it's a very actually disabilities woke community as far as the world goes, anyway.
It
um,
is.
and you are also a person that lives in the art bubble, and the Toronto art bubble is very open to
Mhm.
working with disabled people, and I'm sure the casting opportunities in Toronto are better than in many places in the world.
Mhm.
I'm happy for you to tell me more about this as well. But the did you find yourself looking for a community of people with disabilities outside of the community that you had post accident?
Um, I was sort of thrown into that world because, through rehabilitation, you meet a lot of people that have varying types of accidents and varying types of disabilities. So it was through those experiences that I really got to know people and understand what it meant to be disabled in an able-bodied world. For example, hanging out with a friend of mine who's in a wheelchair, just trying to go to a bar or a restaurant became a mission. Um, it took quite a while to find a space that had those ramps that made it accessible for us, and that was the first time I really took notice of that. Whereas before, I wouldn't really pay much attention to that. So yeah, it did open my eyes and made me more aware of what's lacking and what is working and where we can fix things. um, but it was good for me to be able to connect with people that do define themselves as disabled, just so because they help me understand what the world is like for people like us. Um, and it helped sort of uh, help me put on an armor to be able to take it on a little more with them sharing their experiences and their frustrations, but also what they've learned that helps them get through these types of things. So yeah, it opened up a bunch of new doors for me, for sure, for sure.
And how are those casting opportunities in Toronto?
I mean, there we still have a lot of work to do, I would
I'm
say, for sure,
sure.
for sure. I mean, we're still completely underrepresented, um, but it's been quite a learning curve, and there's a huge part of the reason why I still enjoy acting so much is to be able to challenge those notions of what you're used to seeing on screen and what's acceptable. But I go into a casting room and I will be the only disabled person in the room going for a certain role, but I also see that as a slow growing change because at least I am in the room. Um, but I would love to see more of us going for, the role of driver and finding out how we can tweak that to make it work for someone with a disability of any type. But it has been challenging. It has definitely been challenging. Even something as simple as signing in for an audition. I may have to ask another actor to fill it out for me. But the point is, they are very helpful. I find the community willing and embracing the idea of accepting more disabled people. It's just really stepping up to the plate and challenging ourselves to take those necessary steps.
You are you are now. So how did you actually end up working with Jamie? Because I had that
Mhm.
question hanging, and
Right, right, right. Yeah, so Jamie had seen me in a play that I did.
and we're talking about Jamie Miller, the director of Princess
Sorry,
Tales.
Jamie Miller. That's right.
Yeah.
And she came to see me in a play called Contempt, which is also about a disabled character who goes through an accident and tries to form a relationship with another person. And so after the play, she approached me and said she'd be interested in doing a documentary on me. Um, and at first I was a little taken aback, but we had a little more of a chat, and then I saw the honesty and the purity in her, and I had a lot of trust in her that she would tell the story the way that we wanted to tell it. She was very open to my ideas, and I felt safe to work with her. So I said, okay, let's do it, and it turned out to be a wonderful experience because she did listen to me, and it wasn't a story of pity; it was a story of overcoming and a chapter within, um, rather than a before and after type thing. So that's what I like about it. It was very real and very in the moment for me. So, and it was also healing to share the story.
Right. And the film got shortlisted. It was in the running for the Oscars as a short, right? For
That's
a woman
right.
there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
So
which is great. Yeah,
both
glad it was
films,
recognized.
both films had quite the recognition. Won a number of awards.
That's
Um,
right. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I feel very honored that it was recognized by so many people, and that I was able to share my story with such a wide array of folks. It made it a lot more worthwhile to know that it's spreading, and now it's in Boston.
that's right.
Mhm.
I want to ask you about the this is your accident obviously left you with a physical disability. That's something that you walk down the street and you cannot hide. But
Mhm.
is there an invisible disability aspect that that followed, that was something that you had to deal with? Or was there, I mean, there are obviously, this is a traumatic experience. I'm just
Right.
wondering, how you dealt with the mental health aspect of a trauma as gigantic as this.
For
If
sure.
however much you want to share with us, this is something that that is just close to my heart.
Right.
um, we had a chance to talk a little bit more about post traumatic stress
Hmm.
and questions of that, and I'm curious how that affected you. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also actually questions of memory, something that you talk a lot about in Prince's Tale.
Hmm.
The way you described the experience and how little you remembered from the actual incident, and things that really it's in moments sound like dissociative amnesia. It
Right. Right.
it's very intense, and so I wonder if what came up in your conversations with professionals and with other people.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say why I don't remember so much. It could be dissociative. It could be that I was unconscious. Um, but yeah, depression was definitely a thing that I had to deal with for sure. The grieving and the reality of my new life took some time to accept and to adapt to. Um, it did help to have family and friends, and loved ones nearby, and professionals that I could speak to all throughout. My social worker was also a great person to rely on in times of need. Um, but then it came to a point where I just sort of needed to self isolate actually, um, to be able to meditate and to have time to myself to really process everything that was happening and that was going to be, and how I would be living my life in the future. So I think we all experience, varying degrees of issues with mental health. Um, and it's very important to have someone to speak to when you need to and when you're ready to. But also to be able to take the time for yourself and to go for a walk or do something that makes you happy, which is what I focused on. I had my alone time, and I would go for walks or just be by myself, and then slowly be able to accept myself for who I was. But a huge part was definitely having family and friends and loved ones that I could talk to whenever I needed to have that encouragement and that positive energy inserted into my life.
So speaking of loved ones and friends, we have a
Mm.
question from the audience.
Very good.
And it reads, "Thank you for your amazing work.
Thank you.
As someone with a non someone not born with a disability, friendships can be tough to navigate. Can
Hmm.
you speak to your relationship with Pavo as it stands
Hmm.
now?"
Yeah, I mean, we're good. He was very good at just embracing me for who I was, and a lot of my friends, actually, a lot of my close friends, uh, didn't make an issue of it at all. It went right back to how it was before, which speaks a lot to them and their character.
And of course, Pavo, just for people who may be confused about who Pavo is why don't you explain who Pavo is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Your
He's one of
friend
my
who
best friends who was actually very helpful in getting me out of the house when the fire happened. He pulled me right out of there. So if it wasn't for him, the situation would have been a lot worse. Hate to think about that. But yeah, luckily he was there for me to be able to count on, him and my other friend Brent, who's also in the house. So yeah, we've been able to just we speak a lot about our feelings, and we're very open with each other, which has been very helpful all throughout. Because that's what's most important: just having that communication, having the freedom, and the I guess the safety to know that we can't speak what's on our minds. So we're very honest with each other most of the time, and just to be able to get off whatever's on our chest, and we grieve together as well, which was a huge part of it too. But yeah, navigating new friendships. New friendships are interesting. I always try to highlight the fact that people can try to be as honest as they can with me. Someone may go to shake my hand, and then I may have to. Well, now I'll probably just elbow them because of the situation we're going through. But I would tend to hug instead, or bump elbows or whatever they choose. But it's okay to have those awkward moments because through those we learn. So I like to make people comfortable enough to be able to make those mistakes and ask me honestly what I prefer. And it's little things like that, just asking if you're uncertain how to go about things, to be able to clear that out of the way. Yeah.
There's this scene in Prince's Tale that makes me think that, I don't know if it was staged or not. Probably not really. People stop you in the street, don't they?
They do. Not all the time. I mean, it was funny. I guess it was also the camera, I think. No, that'd be exhausting. No, I think in part because of Prince's Tale, we had a camera. So, when there's a camera on someone, you tend to look a little more at what's going on. But it is an everyday thing for me. It is definitely reality where I will have stares, and people are curious. And some people do stop and say hello or ask what happened, and depending on my mood, I may answer the question, or I may just say have a good day and move on. But that was another huge part of me being hesitant to step out into society again, into my community, just because I wasn't ready to answer those questions or to be stared at,
right.
And to be on display in a sort of way before I was ready. So I really needed that time to gain that confidence and to accept myself before I could step out those doors. And luckily I was able to get to that point where I was like, okay, this is me, and let's just embrace this and take it on, head on. And it does get better. Like now I hardly think about it. When people are staring at me, I hardly notice, or I just smile at them. But that took some time. It took some time to get used to that and to understand that people are curious and may go about it the wrong way and may stare a little too long or gasp or whatever. But kids are
or the opposite, right? I'm sure you probably become the object of inspirational moments, and that can be just as awful, right?
Well, yeah, to the extreme, of course. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. But I do love kids' reactions. I think they're the best. I had one kid say, "Are you going to grow your hands again when you go to heaven?" And I'm like, "I don't know about that. We'll see." But I try to have some fun with it sometimes and say, "Oh, I have my arms at home," or something like that, or meeting my prosthetics. But how kids will take it. They might take that like literally, but I do enjoy their honesty.
About your prosthetics.
Mm-hmm.
What is your relationship with your prosthetics?
Yeah, it's been hard to find prosthetics that I feel really connected to. So I tend to use different devices for, like, say, eating. I have a little slip-on thing that I put a fork and a spoon to, and it's a very simple device that my friend came up with, my friend Simon. Because I find the prosthetic, the one that I use anyway, is just a little too mechanical. Well, it is supposed to be mechanical, but it feels a little foreign to me because I feel a little disconnected. When I'm touching something, I can't feel it. Whereas if I'm touching something with my stumps, I do feel it, and it's easier for me to have a relationship with the object, whatever it is, and more ease of movement with it too. Especially as a creative person, I really enjoy the flow and the ease of movement of the natural body. So I'm still working on finding that piece, that right piece that works for my body. And also, I had a lot of time to adapt to my body without prosthetics before I did get them, so that plays a part as well. Had I got them right away, who knows? I may have a different relationship with them. But because it did take a while, took a year or two before I got my first one, I had already had all that time to play around with my new body and what it can and couldn't do. So, yeah.
So after the things you think I'm thinking,
Mm.
I'm sure you also get lots of questions about your personal dating life and how that's been going since the film. And
Right.
you know, the film is was Jesse's head creating a story, and
Mm-hmm.
in really as a tribute to you. I actually, that is what Wikipedia article about the film actually
Mm.
states, that it's a
Oh.
tribute to you. I don't know
Oh,
if you
wow.
know this.
I didn't know that.
That's
Okay.
actually what you will read about the film on Wikipedia.
Yeah,
It's
interesting.
interesting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The it you know, I'm sure our viewers would be interested in knowing how your personal approach is right now, 8 years in,
Mm-hmm.
to
Uh,
your body, to how you feel about yourself and your
yeah.
your dating world, and
Yeah.
but just in general, your feelings about your feelings about going out and in the world and
Sure.
dating.
Sure.
And
It's still something I'm definitely tackling with, and a lot of that is just my own inner demons and really coming to terms with myself and my body and how I'm viewed by another person. So the dating life has been a little dry, unfortunately, but I mean, that's something that I'm still, still working on for sure, and still trying to figure out how to juggle. But yeah, I haven't, like, I'm not on Tinder or any of those things or any of those dating apps. I have no idea how those things work. I just feel so beyond that, disconnected from it. But I'm not saying no to it. I'm just not in a place where I'm strongly pursuing any relationships right now, and I think that's just me still, still going through things and still trying to figure out where I place in this, this dating world. Yeah, for sure.
there's another question from our viewers, and it reads,
Mhm.
what was your favorite virtual activity when you felt you didn't want to go anywhere? And where can we join you?
Virtual activity. Um, so when you say virtual, do you mean like a reality world, like in a video game, or?
This is not my question. It's hard to say.
um, I mean, I'll tell you what I did do at home. I mean, I watch a lot of movies. I am quite a movie buff. All types of genres I'm really into. At the moment, I'm watching a lot of classical films, though, just sort of going backwards to figure out how film works and how it's grown throughout the years. And I enjoy reading as well and walking my dog, or playing with my dog here. Yeah, and so I'm sort of resorting back to that because of the situation we're all going through right now, right? So, yeah, lots of movies and lots of books.
What's the play that you were supposed to be rehearsing for this week?
Yeah, that would have
Tell
been
us about that.
yeah, August Wilson. Fences is the name of the play.
Okay.
Yeah, are you familiar with it?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, we would have been doing that in Montreal, but I mean, of course, with everything closed down, that's just not a possibility. We've decided to delay it by a couple of weeks, but I mean, every day this thing changes, so who knows what state we'll be in 4 weeks. It's a bummer, but I mean, in the whole scheme of things, I mean, it's important that we close down, right, to avoid too much socializing and physical, um, uh, just to be able to create that physical distance, right? So I'm keeping that in mind, but I mean, it is frustrating not to be able to do things that I would love to do creatively right now, but I mean, we're all going through it, so we're all in this together.
Yes, we are. And on that note, friends,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I wish you the best of health.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
I just,
It's a pleasure.
yes, stay home.
Yeah,
just,
absolutely.
just walk your dog.
Straight out, straight back in. Yeah, really.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And now to our viewers, I just want to remind you that we have a fabulous lineup coming up. Tomorrow, Code of the Freaks. Don't miss that film. Charles Baldwin will be moderating a discussion with Salome Chasnoff and Susan Nussbaum from Code of the Freaks. We also have a number of exciting live stream talkbacks coming up later in the week, and all of this runs through April 2nd. Please donate, and please fill out our survey. And if you have to go out and get groceries, ask your neighbor if they need something. Otherwise, stay home and take good care. And we'll see you online tomorrow night. Again, Prince, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Be safe.
Good night.
Bye.